Before we continue with the analysis, I want to talk to you guys about JerseyFIFA.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that's the latest home shirts, the latest away shirts, tracksuits, or even retro kits, Jersey FIFA has a bit of everything. There really is something for everyone, so if you are interested, then make sure to use the link in the description down below and head to JerseyFIFA.com. Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we have match analysis / my thoughts on Manchester United's 2-0 win over Nottingham Forest in the second leg of the semi-final in the Carabao Cup. A bit of a mouthful for some reason. Of course, putting Manchester United through to the Carabao Cup final, which I will be covering later on in the month. I will also be doing a tactical preview for that game, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 12k before the end of the month, so if you could subscribe, that would be a massive help. But time to talk about what we saw in this game, and what we did see was a very strong selection from Erik ten Hag. He wasn't messing about with his lineup at all, was he? Manchester United were of course already 3-0 up going into the game, and then he decides to go with this starting 11. A very, very strong team indeed. And Nottingham Forest had a few injuries, so they weren't quite at full strength. However, they still got a decent squad out. So let's look at some of the things that we saw from a tactical point of view. And we'll start with Forest not really putting much pressure on the ball at all. They weren't looking to put pressure on the Manchester United centre-backs or the goalkeeper. Instead, they set off into more of a mid-block, and quite a narrow mid-block with that as well, with Dennis and Johnson, the two wingers, moving inside to make quite a compact and narrow 4-2-3-1, but while still holding quite a high line. So this is what we call a mid-block, and this meant that the Manchester United centre-backs had a lot of time on the ball, and Manchester United's build-up shape for this particular game was more of a 2-3 shape, with Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw pushing forward, Casemiro dropping into this pivot role, as he so often does, and then Fred moving further forward, which we will come on to a bit later. But basically, this was kind of how the game played out from here. This is what we saw for most of the match, with these two centre-backs, Lisandro Martinez and Varane, having a lot of time on the ball, taking their time, doing what they want, having touches, and trying to get the team moving forward. And I thought the two of them were pretty impressive with their passing in this game. We saw Varane also often stepping forward with the ball on this side, whereas Lisandro Martinez preferred to progress the ball with his passing. And he did have quite an impressive passing range in this game. We saw switches of play out to Anthony, balls forward into the feet of Garnacho, into Bruno Fernandes, and also some balls over the top as well. And this is something that we've seen a few times lately. Manchester United occasionally trying to break a mid-block with a ball over the top, with Fernandes running from deep. Again, like we've seen in recent games, the pass that didn't quite come off, or the run wasn't quite rightly timed, or the touch was a little bit poor. However, I think it's something to keep an eye on in these games where United face a higher line. This run from deep from Bruno Fernandes when Lisandro Martinez has the ball. Like I said, as of yet, it hasn't really led to too many big chances, but it's just something perhaps to keep an eye on. But anyway, like I said, Nottingham Forest were very narrow from here, and with that ball over the top not working, United had to find another way to progress the ball. Forest seemed quite keen on getting players around Casemiro. We can see he's got the striker Surridge here and Scarpa, the attacking midfielder, around him. However, Casemiro was still pretty comfortable. Again, the pressure from Forest on the ball wasn't enough to really disrupt what Manchester United were trying to do. It felt like all game long, United were able to do things at their own pace. The problem was, that was quite a slow pace. This very much felt like a second leg of a Carabao Cup semi-final where a team is 3-0 up. It felt almost a bit needless to be playing a game at times. There wasn't the same intensity of what normal competitive matches have. It was quite laid back. However, United did have their tactical struggles in this game because they had this inability to progress the ball through the middle. Now, one of the reasons for that is because Forest are so narrow. We can see again this 4-2-3-1 shape, super narrow, but also a lack of balance with Fred and Bruno Fernandes both shifting to the left-hand side, which gives you a lack of options down the right-hand side. However, despite these lack of options in this wider area on this side of the pitch, it was still the easiest method of ball progression. With Forest crowding the pitch so central, it meant that the easiest way to get the ball forward was to try and work it out wide. And this is where Shaw and Wan-Bissaka were of course important, the two fullbacks. Luke Shaw on this side, regularly tucking infield, dragging Johnson even narrower than what he was before, meaning that Garnacho can get the ball into feet here, and if Fred makes a run past him, Nico Williams can't go be aggressive. It means that Garnacho can get the ball into his feet, turn, face up his man, and then look to be aggressive. We know what Garnacho wants to do in these areas. He wants to take on Williams and try and beat him. He had a pretty decent game, Garnacho. Got past Williams a couple of times, was also tackled a couple of times, occasionally tried to do things a little bit too quickly, which, you know, it's fair enough. He's a young player, we kind of expect that. But as a result, it did make it a little bit difficult for United. We did see him also supported by Luke Shaw. United kind of worked into this area quite well, but once they were in this position, they didn't look too great. But again, it was almost just a lack of intensity. Again, it looked like a United team which knew that they were through to the next round. Down the right-hand side, Wan-Bissaka, rather than tucking in central like Luke Shaw did, looked to carry the ball forward a bit more. into the final third, then gives the ball to Antony and then starts making these underlapping runs. And the problem down this side was the problem that has been the problem all season, a lack of options for the player on the ball. With Bruno Fernandes and Fred both drifting more left side, it just means that there isn't that extra man in there which you can get the ball to, and then Antony and Wan-Bissaka, they were probably two of the sharper players in the first half, but again, just a lack of options on the ball, so they struggle to really create too much. We can see they still have, like, superiority in the attacking sense, Manchester United, because they are able to create this front five of Garnacho, Fred, Weghorst, Wan-Bissaka and Antony. Sometimes it'd be Fernandes instead of one of those, but we can see that front five up against the Nottingham Forest back four, and when you create that situation, United should then have the ability to move the ball quickly and break them down, but United just didn't move the ball quickly enough, and there was just really no tempo in the game. It was the case until, probably the 60th minute when we saw the substitutes. It was a really flat game, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and say a tactical masterclass by either manager to keep it tight for so long, or Ten Hag particularly exploiting a certain weakness. This was going through the motions. It felt a bit like a slightly more intense training session. Things started to change around the 63rd minute when Forest seemed to kind of take the approach of, we've got nothing to lose now, we're 3-0 down already, we need 3 goals from somewhere in the next half hour, if not we're going out. So they felt that they might as well do something, so they started to open up a bit, and this also happened at the same time that Manchester United made some substitutes. And I'll be honest, these substitutes from Erik Ten Hag changed the game, and that's what happens when you have this sort of quality. We've got Jadon Sancho returning to the squad for the first time. It was great to see that smile on his face and the confidence. Martial returning from injury, again a player that United need till the end of the season. And Marcus Rashford, of course, we know the form he's in. So to bring these three on from the bench it's almost a bit of a cheat code, and what it meant was that we saw Bruno Fernandes move to the right wing, Jadon Sancho came on and played in this 10 role, which we will talk about shortly, because I did mention it in a video recently that United should do this, so I was really excited to see it. And we saw Rashford come on to the left wing in place of Garnacho, who, like I said again, Garnacho had a decent game without really hitting the heights. But this new lineup from United, combined with the fact that Forest were now more open, suddenly got things going. And one of the reasons that I thought United looked so much better was, yes, Forest were open, so there were more spaces, but they suddenly looked more balanced, because by having Jadon Sancho on the pitch, they had a player who didn't constantly want to drift left side, and instead he wanted to play in this right channel. This now gives United so much more balance, and also, because you haven't got this player standing here, who's kind of almost taking up the striker's position at times, by Sancho moving more to the channel, it meant that we could then get the best out of the striker as well. Weghorst in the first half was a little bit quiet, and again, granted, yes, that was when Forest were a bit tighter, so this did coincide also with Forest opening up a bit, but also by having Sancho on the pitch moving to the right side, it gave Martial this extra bit of room from where he was able to link the play, but also, it meant that United now, once again, were exploiting in all 5 channels. And I got some really dangerous players in this area, so when Wan-Bissaka's coming forward, Bruno Fernandes is down this side, he has that option to go inside with Jadon Sancho. So it's a 3 versus 3 in this area. Whereas before, in the first half, it was a 2 versus 3 with Antony and Wan-Bissaka on the side. However, you don't lose balance on the other side either, because you still have Shaw, Fred and now Rashford on this side, again making it a 3 versus 3, at times a 3 versus 2 when Forest were more open. And the talk of Jadon Sancho, what is his best position, is a video that I covered recently on the channel 2 or 3 days ago, so you can go check that out if you want. I think Sancho, as the 10, can bring something a little bit different to this team. And we saw it in the build-up to one of the goals, of course, actually. Sancho gets the ball in this sort of area here, opens his body up, and plays the ball to Bruno Fernandes, and then eventually the ball gets worked into the box. Rashford knocks it back across the box, and Fred taps it in. I thought that United, in that last 25 minutes, looked actually quite exciting. The game was really boring for the first hour. Probably the most interesting thing was Wan-Bissaka's number 9 falling off on his shirt. United weren't that threatening, but when these substitutes came on, it looked like players who had a point to prove, but also just fresh legs, but also this greater tactical balance. I thought the United team looked much better with Sancho playing in this hole, because it gave them this front 5 attacking line, but rather than having Wan-Bissaka in this inverted position, you got Jadon Sancho. And in terms of a technical point of view and a creative point of view, obviously that's night and day the difference. Wan-Bissaka's a defender, Jadon Sancho really thrives in this area. This is one of his greatest areas on the pitch, this channel here and this channel here. And by playing him as an attacking midfielder, it allows him to do a bit of both. But what I did like is that he was really holding the balance for the team. We saw some nice passes into the feet of Martial, whose link play was good. And of course, as always this season, the quality of Marcus Rashford on the left wing. As soon as he comes onto the pitch, he just brings something different. And he's going through one of those spells at the moment, one of those patches where players just go through it sometimes, where everything they touch just turns to gold. You go through a dribble, the ball might rebound 3 times and it still falls back to you. He's going through one of those patches at the moment where everything works out for you, and Obviously, that's really good for Manchester United. He got himself 2 assists. Martial got a goal on his return. Fred got a goal from midfield as well, which now this season he has scored more than 3 separate seasons combined, which is very impressive from Fred. Yeah, in general, United got the job done, basically. That's how I would describe this game. There was nothing special. Obviously, Ten Hag went strong to keep momentum, but there wasn't actually too much momentum in the performance. I thought United were quite slow. Like I said, first gear. It felt like a slightly more intense training session. A training session against a low block, and Forest doing a training session on maintaining your shape. So it wasn't the most entertaining game. Old Trafford was a little bit flat, but I think that's to be expected. However, we still saw some great performances from someone like Sancho Martinez on the ball, and we saw the return of some really important players, and it was great to see. United got the job done and are through to the Carabao Cup final. So yeah, like I said, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because I will be covering the final with a preview on how to beat Newcastle as well. All that good stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments down below though. What did you think of this performance? What did you think of the lineup, firstly, because it was very, very strong? What did you think of the performance? What did you think of Jadon Sancho coming on and playing as a 10? Bruno Fernandes on the right wing, Martial up top? All of that, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, I hope you have enjoyed the video, and as always, I will see you in the next one.